All right, let's get started. Hello and welcome to our webinar on Fieldpoint Integrated Payment Solutions. My name is Isham. I am with Fieldpoint and I will be hosting this webinar. We're here today to talk about how we can help you use Fieldpoint payments to streamline your business process and optimize your entire service management experience. This will enable you to provide a greater customer experience and unlock the productivity that your company needs to grow. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them using the Q&A feature, and our moderators will respond to you in live chat. First, I'd like to share a little bit about Fieldpoint. We are a leading provider of end-to-end service management solutions. We empower our customers to manage the full spectrum of service lifecycle. This includes customer relations, mobile and workforce management, as well as asset and warranty management. Pair that with integrations to your favorite CRM, ERP, and accounting systems, and of course, integrated payment processing. We've been experts in field service management for over 20 years. We have hundreds of customers spanning across North America in a variety of different industries, including HVAC, refrigeration, fire life and safety, petroleum, IT services, telecom, medical devices, building management, and many more. Our objective is to be at the forefront of the digitization of the service economy and to empower our customers to grow and better serve their customers and their respective industries. Fieldpoint has been offering an integrated payment solution for a few years now. We've teamed up with Stripe to build a seamless integrated payment solution that works for both the US and Canadian customers. This will allow you to offer your customers a hassle-free way to pay with ACH, credit card, or e-checks, from the office or from the field. We're a fully PCI-compliant collection process, which means ensuring the security of data collected and dollars exchanged will not be a burden for your business. Fast transaction processing, free and easy setup, and no long-term contracts or monthly fees means you can get started today and join the digital invoicing movement. Our payment solution is ERP friendly and will communicate payment status updates to your accounting system. Alright, so here's what you can expect from our session today. We will be covering a high-level overview of the common payment collection methods used in business today, followed by a review of the most common pain points often encountered with these payment methods. Not to worry, of course, because we will be sharing how Fieldpoint can help resolve these pain points and streamline the payment collection interaction. We can then change gears and jump into a live demo where I will show you how you can process a credit card payment using an email pay link or an existing payment method from the payment vault. I will also show you how you can collect payments from the field using the Fieldpoint mobile application. We will then follow the transaction through to both NetSuite and Business Central to show you what the interaction looks like there. Okay, so here we have the most common payment collection methods used in business today. Depending on the industry that you're in and the market segment that you service, there might be an inclination towards one form of payment over another. For example, customers that operate in the residential space might primarily use credit cards, whereas customers that operate in the commercial or B2B space may rely more on checks. Regardless, you are likely getting paid by check or ACH or maybe an existing card on file or a bank transfer that you can use to process a payment. Perhaps you already have an existing payment nexus enacted through your ERP or accounting software, or you're using a combination of these different payment methods. Here we have the most common pain points for each of the different payment collection methods that we looked at before. Checks are one of the longest standing forms of payment. However, you have to contend with the long wait times for delivery by mail, the inherent security and fraud prevention issues that come with checks, as well as the admin overhead to deposit the checks and manually update the accounting system once the funds have cleared. Getting paid with an existing card on file is a fast and convenient way to get paid in a timely manner. However, it's not always easy to get your customers to provide you with that information. There's an element of liability if your process or current system is not PCI compliant. Who is responsible for protecting the customer's payment information, for example? Customers are not always comfortable sharing that information with you, especially not when they have to provide their banking details over the phone or by filling out a PDF form. If you're using an ERP or accounting system, it's possible that you already have a payment solution there. But how do you collect payments directly from the field? Your back office admins now have to initiate a billing process for each service ticket in a situation where your techs could have simply clicked one more button and collected payments. More time, more work. A bank transfer is another secure way to get paid. Similar to checks, however, there is a manual overhead required, where your accounting finance admins will have to reconcile the payment amounts and update the accounting ERP systems accordingly. So far, we've heard words like overhead, manual, and liability, among others, none of which are probable descriptors of an efficient or streamlined process. Now, how does Fieldpoint solve for these issues, you might ask, or how can Fieldpoint help? We offer a broad menu solution to the various combinations of the different payment collection challenges that you might be facing. Whether you email from the back office or from the field, whether you have an existing ERP accounting or a payment solution or not, our integrated ability to send email pay links, leverage a payment vault, and collect payments directly from the field bridges the gap between the service being rendered and the payments being processed. Here is an example of an email pay link that was sent from Fieldpoint to a customer. Simple, easy, convenient. Customer clicks on Pay Invoice, a checkout form is rendered, and payment is collected. We'll see this shortly during our live demo segment. Here we have an example of how you can leverage the payment vault to process a payment for an invoice. Using the Pay workflow action, you can click on Pay. Fieldpoint will load the available cards in the card vault. You can choose a payment method and then process the payment automatically, and an invoice will be sent to your customer at the end of the transaction. Another key ingredient to remedy some of the most common pain points with today's payment processing methods is the ability to collect payments directly from the field. Here we have a couple of screenshots from the mobile application that shows you how technicians can simply click on Pay Invoice or Email Invoice to either collect payment directly on the phone where the customer can key in their payment details, or send an email where the customer has a pay link that they can click on to provide their payment details. So this is a good point of departure from the slide deck. We can change gears and jump right into the live demo, where I will be sharing my screen with the Fieldpoint environment, and we'll run through a couple of different examples by processing payment with an email pay link, another example with the mobile application, and then we'll take a look at what NetSuite and Business Central will show us for these transactions. Here we have the Fieldpoint environment that I'll be using for this live demonstration. I'll get logged in here in just a moment and we'll create a work order together. We'll take it through from inception all the way to completion and payment collection. Upon a successful login, I see a list of the work orders here. I have my profile personalized so that it loads the work orders as soon as I log in. You could personalize your profile so that it loads whatever list of information is most pertinent to you. If you work in finance, you may want to see a list of the invoices. If you work in service, you may want to see the service desk or the service dashboard, which gives you all the information related to the work orders, the different statuses they're in, the levels of priority or escalations, how urgent some of these calls are, all from the landing page. So what I'd like to do now is create a work order for us that we can pick up on mobile and go through the entire interaction of completing the service and collecting payment. In the interest of time, I'm going to take an existing work order and simply copy it. So this one here is good. We can go ahead and click on copy. This will create a copy of the work order for us. I will then go ahead and schedule my technician. Assign a date and a time. Hit save. And this will create an appointment for our technician. So at this point in time, the tech would have received a push notification on their phone to say you've been assigned to this work order and you have an appointment for 10 o'clock. Since we like our techs very much, we're going to try to make their job as easy as possible. So in this one example, I am going to add one part. So we can do a lookup on our item master, choose the part that we're installing or replacing. It automatically pulls in the unit cost and the unit price from the item master. I am going to disable the purchase order on this one as I do not want to create a purchase order. Hit save and close. And this has added the item to the work order. So now we can take a break from the portal, and I am using an Android emulator to load the mobile application on my desktop. So I'll quickly switch screens here, and then I'll show you what the mobile application looks like. And then we'll find this work order that we just created over here, work order number 312. Here's the mobile application. There's a lot to cover here. We probably don't have enough time on our session today to explore all of mobile. Fieldpoint has been committed to continuously investing in our product and our customers. As a result of this commitment, we've recently launched a modernized version of the mobile app back in March, which includes a new look and feel and a ton of new features. Features such as the ability to create quotes, work orders, collect payments, as well as support for timesheet review and approval, all directly from the app. The mobile app can be an incredibly valuable component of your Fieldpoint solution, as it can empower your techs to do more on their own, and that can free up your admins and dispatchers to focus on the operations of the business. It can also reduce the waiting and processing times for information to be communicated from the field to your admins. Since the session is primarily around payments, we will focus on the payment-related aspects of mobile. There is probably enough content on this latest version of mobile that we will likely host a session like this one dedicated to it. Just before we dive right into it, I want to point out to you that my mobile application is currently rendered in the landscape orientation, which gives us a little bit more screen real estate, which is nice for the purposes of this demo. If you're an existing Fieldpoint mobile user and you'll notice that your screens look slightly different, that's because you likely have it in a portrait orientation. If you were to rotate your phone or tablet sideways, the data will be loaded in a tabular format as opposed to a tile format, and your forms will have multi-sections as opposed to having a single section configuration where you scroll up and down. So with that, we can get started. You'll notice that on the work orders tile, we have a banner with a number 1, which is indicating to us that we have one new work order and one new appointment. So we can go ahead and get started by launching the work orders tile. Here we have a list of all the work orders that are currently assigned to me. And we can go ahead and open up the new one up top. So similar to the desktop, we have more or less the same tabs that we saw earlier when we created this work order. You have the ability to check your appointments. We have the ability to add or check the parts. So if you recall earlier, we added one part to this work order, which we see here. We have the ability to add more using the plus sign over here. Similar to that, you have the ability to add expenses. So if you had to purchase parts, for example, or if you're traveling, there's a per diem, there's kind of lodging expenses. Those can all go here. Same idea, it's kind of a common theme throughout the Fieldpoint application. You have a plus sign, you click on it, it launches a form. This form is your primary means of interacting with the data, adding new records, modifying existing ones, and in some cases potentially deleting data. So you can go ahead and choose an item here. We can say this is miscellaneous parts. Say this is billable to the customer. We'll add a price to it. Hit save. And this is now saving this expense back to the server. So typically your technician will receive the work. They'll have to kind of complete some sort of a service. They'll complete the repair, the install, the PM, whatever type of service they are there to complete. Typically when they're done, they will fill in their time. There's a few different ways that you can handle the timesheet on mobile. One of them is you have the time automatically calculated, and that's using the on route, on site, and complete workflow actions. The way that works is it figures out the time difference between when you initiate these different workflow statuses, and it automatically fills in your labor hours, your travel hours, and then travel from hours if that's something that you bill your customers for. For the purposes of this demo, we need to allow minimum a minute to elapse between each of the different statuses here in order for Fieldpoint to recognize some time has elapsed. So what we'll do here is we'll complete the appointment, which is a prerequisite to completing the work order, which is a prerequisite to collecting payment. Now that the work order is complete, we do have a form to override hours, so I'll simply use that to key in the labor hours. So we'll say we were there for a full day. It was a 2-hour travel trip. And I will hit save down here. I do have another quick example that I prepared here to show you how you could enter time without using the workflow actions. So these fields would simply be open, and then your tech could just key in their time and then hit save. Okay, now that we entered the time, we can go ahead and complete the work order using the complete workflow action from the main work order page. We'll go ahead and click on complete. This will load a transition form that allows us to capture some additional details. It's not necessary that all these fields may be important to you, but for example, the solutions notes and the customer signature are pretty standard fields that majority of the customers will use. You're probably getting this level of detail back from your text today anyway, so this should be pretty well aligned. Capture a signature. Signed by, hit OK. Now we'll scroll down here and hit save. Okay, so the work order is now completed. The next step is to collect payment. So once more, we go to the workflow actions at the top. So here we have the ability to close an invoice or preview the invoice again in case we've made changes since the last preview was generated. In our case, we'll say close and invoice. Confirm close an invoice, we're going to say OK. Right, so this has taken us to the invoices tab. You can see that the circular arrows are synchronizing with the server. So it's saving the invoice to the server and then re-downloading it to the mobile application. Okay, so now that it's downloaded the invoice back, we can see the invoice record here. We can go ahead and click on it. This will open up the invoice. We can see that it is in a posted status. Using the workflow actions at the top here, we have the ability to either email invoice or pay invoice. So in this example, we'll just go ahead and click on Pay Invoice. Confirm Pay Invoice. So now it loads the Stripe payment form. And in the example of this customer here, we already have several payment methods stored in our payment vault. So it's giving us the option to either process an ACH payment with the banking information we have, or to use the Visa card that we have stored already, or alternatively to use another payment method where the customer can key in their card details directly into the technician's phone. So let's go ahead and do that. So we will fill out the payment details. And then click on Submit Payment. You have the option to save this payment method with Stripe to add it to the vault. You also have the ability to add the email of the customer so they can receive a copy of the invoice confirmation. Okay, so now we can take up another example where we email the customer a pay link, and then they can use the pay button from that pay link to complete the payment. So let's go ahead and create this work order from the mobile application as opposed to going back to the portal. So we'll click on the plus sign here. This will load the work order form, and we have to populate all the mandatory fields. So we'll go ahead and begin with the customer's name. Found the customer. It backfilled in the customer details for the address. Work order type, we'll say this is a repair. That's probably as detailed as your customers usually provide you. And this is probably good for what we need. So we'll go ahead and hit save. We can see our work order is now in an entered status. So what we can do is maybe add an expense just to save a little bit of time. We'll skip the appointments and the parts. We'll add the expense so that we have something to bill. Okay, we'll say this is a billable expense. We'll select an item number. We'll choose the miscellaneous parts. Quantity 1, about $1,200 worth of parts. Hit save. Okay, that's been saved. We can go back. So we'll kind of just advance through the different workflow actions here we need to complete, similar as to what we did to the first work order. We fill out the transition form. Some solution notes, hit OK. We need to capture a signature. Hit OK. And hit save. So this will complete the work order for us. Now that the work order has been completed, we can take the same actions as before. We can preview the invoice, which will generate the PDF preview prior to billing. It will load up the PDF for us to review. Everything looks good. We can go back to the work order. And from previewed, we can say close and invoice. Confirm that action. Here we have the invoice. We can go ahead and open up the invoice record. And it says posted. So from here, we can say email invoice, and this will send out an email to the customer so that they can provide their payment details and pay for this service. And hit save. So now it says pay link sent, and I will change screens and I'll show you what that email looks like. So here's what the email looks like. The language, the styling, and all that could be personalized. But what we're really interested in is this pay invoice button right here. When you click on it, it will launch the Stripe payment form in the browser. So I'll change screens momentarily and I will show you what that looks like. So here it is. It's basically the same form that we saw earlier. Only difference now is that this form is loading on the customer's device. So instead of the customer adding their payment details into the text phone, using the pay link, they were able to click on that link and get the payment form on their own device. So we can go ahead and fill out the details similar to what we did before. I think you didn't get to see the payment confirmation screen in the first example. So we get to see that here. You have the ability to add the email where you want the payment confirmation to be sent to, and then you click submit payment. And it will say confirmation, payment complete, and then it will update the Fieldpoint side to say it's been fully paid. Now back on mobile, it said pay link sent initially, and now that payment has been collected, it will update automatically to show fully paid. So it says processing, it's getting the updates. If you scroll down a little bit here, you can see a little bit more details about the invoice, like the amount total, the customer, contact information. And so now it says fully paid, and so this is an indication to your technician that payment has been received and they are good to wrap up the job there, close out the work order, and move on to the next job site. So this is probably a good point to stop with the mobile and then go back to the portal and pick it up from there. So when we departed from the portal, we were creating the work order 312 here. We scheduled it. I'm going to go ahead and hit refresh just to bring the portal up to real time. So now we can see it's been invoiced, it's been closed, previewed, all the previous statuses that we traveled through. So from here, there's a couple of things you can do. One is if you navigate to the totals tab, there will be a hyperlink to the invoice number, and this is one way to access the invoice. You click on the hyperlink, it opens up the invoice details, and from here you can export an invoice in Business Central in this example. And so now it says pending export. It's going to go through the export process and then update the status of this invoice once it's been fully exported. Alternatively, if you're not really working with work orders on the regular, you can navigate to the invoicing and then the invoices grid. Once the data loads, here you have a list of all the invoices in the system with a status. So one of them here says exported. That's likely the one we were just working on for work order number 312. Here is the second one that we created from mobile. We can go ahead and open it and complete the same action, export to Business Central and invoice. Give it a second here, hit refresh, and now it says exported. So now we can take a look inside of Business Central to see what these invoices look like there and how you can keep track of the payment status. So let's quickly change screens and I will show you what that looks like. So here we are inside of Business Central. And what we can do here is do a search for the customer ledger. And this will allow us to view the payments and the sales orders that came through earlier. So for example, here is the sales order for the first work order we completed on mobile, work order 312. You can see down here we had 8 hours of labor, 2 hours of travel, a miscellaneous part, and then a part that we added from the portal. And then there is a corresponding payment with that sales order up top here. So we can take up a couple more examples with completing payments from the portal. We'll probably do an example with an ACH payment and then another one with the pay link from the portal, as well as completing a payment with a card on file. And then we'll show you what that looks like inside of NetSuite, just for contrast, to give you a sense of what both ERP systems look like and how we interact with them. Here we are back inside of Fieldpoint, only this time we're in a Fieldpoint environment that is connected to NetSuite. So prepared an example for us here earlier. We can go ahead and pick it up. So we'll go ahead and schedule this work order. Assign it to a technician, add some time, and then we can close it, invoice it, and collect payment on it. Navigate to the Payments tab, open up the Details form for the appointment, follow through with the workflow actions at the top. And then let's go ahead and maybe change the service code to a billable service code like TNM. And let us add some time here. Hit save and make sure to complete the appointment. So this is a warning that Fieldpoint offers, at least on the later versions, where it lets you know if you have overlapping appointments. It could also be configured so that it prevents overlapping appointments. Okay, if you're not doing this already, the Totals tab is a great way to confirm what will be billed on the work order and to make any final adjustments prior to billing. So we'll go ahead and complete this work order. Say close an invoice. Under the Totals tab, we have a reference to the invoice number. Again, this is one way to do it. The other way to do it is to go to Invoicing and then the Invoices grid, and you'll be able to find the invoice number there. So now that we have the invoice details, we'll go ahead and export to NetSuite. It's pending export. We'll give it a second here and then we'll refresh and it will say exported. Okay, it says exported, and now we have the option to collect payment. So we'll go ahead and click on pay. You'll notice a similar payment form as to what we saw with the earlier examples is presented. And from here we can go ahead and either use the existing card on file or we can key in a different payment method. So we'll use the card on file. It says payment complete. We come back here, hit refresh. We can check under payment transactions what's being processed. You can see that there was a Stripe payment for this transaction. So I'll take a moment here while it authorizes the transaction and then it clears it and then it will say fully paid. You can see that now it says fully paid, and we can check on the transaction in NetSuite. So if we go over to NetSuite, we can search for the Fieldpoint invoice number directly and it should be able to find it. And you can see that the status here is paid in full. So kind of synchronize that over to NetSuite. Down here you see there's a reference to the Fieldpoint invoice number, the Fieldpoint work order, and it is possible to add buttons on the Fieldpoint invoice record to directly hyperlink you over to NetSuite so that you're not having to search for the document manually. So that's one example. Another example is how to collect a new payment method from the customer. So say for example you want to invite the customer to add a new credit card on file so that you could use it to process future payments. I have an example prepared earlier, so we can go ahead and try it with that. Invoice number 35. So in order to do this, you can hyperlink over to the customer master. And one of the tabs across the top says payment methods. So this here stores the cards that you have on file in your payment vault. And there's an option here to collect payment methods by email. So when you click on this, it emails the primary billing contact a link and it invites them to add a new card. When the customer clicks on the link, this is the page that they'll be presented with. They can key in their card details and it will be securely added to your list of payment methods that are available to you. And you can see there's an option for banking details if you want to store ACH credentials for bank transfers. So I can go ahead and say add payment method. It says your payment method has been successfully added. When I go back to Fieldpoint and I refresh the available payment methods, you'll notice that now there's a second card that I can use. So if I back out one screen to the invoice and I click on pay, now you'll notice that I have that additional card that I just added as one of the options for payment. So I can go ahead and settle this bill and click submit payment. Okay, so maybe just a couple more examples, one with email pay link from the portal and another with ACH from the portal. So I have this example prepared. We can go ahead and click on email invoice at the top here. Alright, so it has the email pay link configuration here. You put in the email address of the billing contact that you want to receive this, and then you hit save. You'll get a confirmation dialog saying the email was sent successfully. And at this point, your customer will receive an email with a pay link similar to what we saw in previous examples, where they can begin the payment process. So here's what that email looks like. You get a PDF attachment with the Fieldpoint invoice, and then you get the pay link with the pay invoice button here. So we can go ahead and click on this. It will load the Stripe payment screen on my other monitor and we'll kind of begin processing the payment there. Alright, so here it is. You can either do credit card or again ACH or bank to bank, and more or less the same process as all the other transactions we've done so far. Hit submit payment. It will send a confirmation, and then back on the Fieldpoint invoice under the payment transactions, it will register that there is an authorization on the card, and it will kind of keep you updated as to what status it's in. We'll click refresh here. It says pay link sent. Now it says processing, and then eventually it'll say fully paid. Okay, in the last example, we'll do an ACH transaction. So we'll back out of here, look for this invoice number, and we will click pay. So we've got $1,200 here. We can go ahead and click on pay. And I'm going to use this stored banking details and just submit payment. Okay, so it says expected completion time 3 to 5 business days from the payment submission date. So the nice thing about doing ACH with Fieldpoint integrated payments is that you get status updates on where or which status the ACH is currently in, all the way until it eventually clears and the money is deposited in your account. So they'll get multiple lines in this payment transactions table that would inform you how the progression of the ACH is happening, and then eventually it will update the status of the invoice as a whole to say, you know, fully paid. So right now it says ACH initiated. If we wait a little bit, I think it might take a couple of minutes perhaps. Oh, that happened already. It says fully paid. So in real life this would be kind of 3 to 5 business days, but because this is a demo environment and it's not real money, it's happening a lot quicker. You're also able to see the list of payments against this invoice under the payments tab here. And so if there are multiple payments towards the same invoice, you would see the transactions appear here. If you're an existing Fieldpoint customer and you're on one of the later versions of Fieldpoint, 1192 or later, if you do a search for Stripe, either the onboarding or the settings page, it will take you to a part of the system where if you're not already with Stripe, you're not already signed up with Stripe through Fieldpoint, you'll have kind of a wizard that you can initiate that will take you through the onboarding process. If you're already connected with Stripe through Fieldpoint, then you'll have the ability to navigate to the dashboard. So this is the Stripe dashboard, which has some beautiful visuals on how many transactions by day, how many transactions within a date range, the overall revenue, the balance, the payments that have gone through today. It really is a very nice way to look at the data in addition to what Fieldpoint offers, in addition to what your ERP system might offer. It's a nice way to see the transactions flowing through by customer, by amount, by status. And so I do have some screenshots in the PowerPoint that I documented of the onboarding process. It really is super simple. Probably takes somewhere between 5 to 10 minutes to get through the entire onboarding wizard. And so we'll kind of change gears again and I will show you what those screens look like. Alright, welcome back. Hopefully you found the live demo insightful and you got great value out of it. Just a couple more slides to get through here. Here's another screenshot of the Stripe dashboard, which we saw a version of in the live demonstration. Again, an excellent tool to get insightful data about the financials, the transaction processing, and the status of each of the transactions. If you're an existing Fieldpoint customer and you're on version 1192 or later, and you're not currently enrolled with Stripe payment processing, if you search for that Stripe onboarding menu, which I showed you earlier, you should have a button that says Start Onboarding. And this will take you through the onboarding process, which honestly takes about 5 to 10 minutes. It starts off fairly basic, just getting you to create an account with a username and password. I'll then ask for some personal information, name, address, a little bit about your business, some security questions to secure the account, and eventually, once it's collected all the information it needs, Stripe will begin processing that data and creating the account to configure the integration with Fieldpoint and Stripe. So you review and you finish, you submit and you agree to the terms, and then they'll take it from there. So as far as getting started, as I mentioned earlier, you can use Fieldpoint payments on version 1192 or later. However, Field Payments is only available on Fieldpoint version 1196 or later. Just to recap, there are no contracts, no monthly fees, and the pricing is very competitive. We have the two hyperlinks here that will take you to the pricing. Depending on whether or not you're operating in the US or Canada, the rates might be a little bit different. If you have an existing payment solution, please connect with us, and we do have the ability to price match and ensure that you're still getting a great deal by using Fieldpoint and Stripe together. For upcoming features, we have online payment fees, which will allow you to set a percentage or a fixed amount that will be collected at the time of payment. This feature should be out in about a month or so. We also have payment transaction import. This will give you the ability to import historical payments from your ERP into Fieldpoint for invoices that had originally came from Fieldpoint. If you are still here, I am grateful for your time. I hope you have enjoyed our session today and that you have gotten great value from attending. I saw there was quite a few questions in the Q&A chat of the Zoom webinar, and I saw a lot of the answers coming through. We'll pause here for a few minutes and just kind of make space for anyone else that may still have questions, or if there are any questions that were not answered earlier, more than happy to take them up here.